Okay, so I was hungry, so I'm eating a little cereal. Concluding again from the second edition of the book, we are looking at the summary of each part. We just looked at part one, which is state of the world. Here we are in approaching the world, which is second part of the book. Our future is uncertain and our world is complex, ambiguous and dynamic. We use these words a lot, but they are worth remembering. Sustainable development thus demands philosophical, theoretical and practical approaches that are not only assisting us in explaining, understanding and improving our sustainability challenges and their symptomatic events, but also fit together a link between the conceptual and the actual. That is the core of sustainability science. Remember, the entire book is about the science and not so much about any case studies. There are some ideas on how to implement capacity development for resilience and so on, but nonetheless it's not a book that is giving you any examples. So you should remember that, because the previous section of the course based on Sustaining the Commons by Andries and Janssen, which is based on Elinor Ostrom's work, is full of case studies, and the entire idea of the institutional analysis and development by Elinor Ostrom is based on case studies here, whereas here we are coming from a sustainability science approach that is full of theory, sociology, social science, political science, and generally human behavior as well. Assuming that the world exists independently of any observer, but that any knowledge we can have about is yeah, maybe I'm still hungry. Let me chew a little bit on the sorry about that. Assuming that the world exists independently of any observer, but that any knowledge we can have about it is constructed in particular social contexts, development becomes highly subjective and normative concept. Development is thus viewed as a preferred expected scenario of change in a set of variables over time, from a current to a desired state, and includes purposeful activities to drive or steer this change towards the preferred state. Sustainable development is then a development that can be maintained over time and safeguarded from the impact of adverse events and their underlying processes. That's resilience. However, at any point in time, there are infinite possible alternative future scenarios ahead of us. So you have to reconcile this with the whole IPCC thing, where we are defining many scenarios. Now they're called shared socioeconomic pathways, with mitigation and adaptation and what's the other axis? It's about emissions or whatever. It's adaptation and mitigation. So you basically go from ease of adaptation to difficulty in adaptation, and ease of mitigation to difficulty in mitigation, and you have fossil fuel based development and sustainable development and an equal world, lots of regional conflicts and so on and so forth. Whereas here we are thinking of a phase space where we have a minimum human development index we want to accomplish for all, and a limited environmental footprint we want to have in this pathway, right? So the alternative future scenarios here are not explicitly defined as to what they are, whereas the IPCC approach is to define some scenarios and then back out the emissions that would result from them, and then focus on what choices we have to make to keep the global warming below 2 degrees C or 1 degree C, 1.5 degrees C by 2100 with, let's say, 67% probability, and then what are the exceedances we can expect. So finally, the dynamic character of our world makes static approaches to safety and sustainability futile. Human environment systems must, in other words, be resilient to be sustainable, meaning they must have the capacity to continuously develop along a preferred expected trajectory whilst remaining within the human environmental boundaries, so HDI and environmental footprint. Resilience is an emergent property determined by the ability of human environment system to anticipate, recognize, adapt to, and learn from variations, changes, disturbances, disruptions, and disasters that may cause harm to what human beings value. So we keep making choices, but those choices have some intended and unintended consequences, so you are always detouring from sustainability pathway, and resilience means we keep coming back despite all these disturbances and disruptions and disasters, right? So it is relative and context dependent, just as the concepts of development and risk, and assessing and comparing resilience requires proper care concerning keeping variables and preferences constant over space and time. The functions of anticipation, recognition, adaptation, and learning, as well as their constituent functions on lower hierarchical levels of abstraction, are in turn performed by a complex combination of knowledge, skills, tools, and other resources. Organizations on all levels, or organization on all levels, you imagine global organization, but they will be local organizations at lower levels, rules, regulations, and other formal institutions, and norms, values, and other informal institutions. In short, resilience assists us in managing the dynamic character of our world. So to summarize this second part, approaching the world, sustainability science provides coherent conceptual approaches and tools for making sense of uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and dynamic change necessary for grasping and addressing present and future safety and sustainability issues, including how to represent the human environmental systems to keep on this pathway. I am thus truly standing on the shoulders of giants when I am presenting my contribution to this endeavor, giants who have not only actively contributed to establishing sustainability science as such, but to a wide range of important disciplinary work that underpins the transdisciplinary efforts for a sustainable future. Modesty is always good. So the last part is changing the world, and did I include that in the title here? Let me see before I continue. And no, I just said approaching the world. So even though this podcast is only about 7.5 minutes, let's stop it and come back and look at changing the world in the next podcast and then conclude. I've summarized this in a very short way because we already had a more detailed summary in from the first edition, and there are not that many new things here. But we'll see that some of it in changing the world as we go forward with, complexity and sustainia, a bit, so industria to sustainia and so on. Okay, see you in the next podcast.